I think you need a dedicated round of applause before you stop. Please welcome Christian to the stage. Thank you.
I haven't done anything yet. Thank you. Thank you. Greetings. It's really, really good to be back in York. I'd completely forgotten a particular instance of being here, but on walking around at lunchtime, I saw an absinthe bar, and I remembered a night I completely, they should call it absence, because that was not a memory I recalled until I walked past there. What a good night. Last night was also very good, too good. Bad influences. It's a pleasure to be here, although it was very strange to sit down and look at a process which, for me, is kind of perpetually evolving. Every time there's a new app out, I'll completely change the way I work because I want to see how that works. This curiosity, this phenomenon of curiosity, because what kind of happens to that curiosity for many people? The common denominator in this room right now, this is the perfect place for a gathering of minds which are only here because they are curious. And I'm wondering if it was the schooling system in many ways. You might be able to answer that. How does curiosity in some ways get beaten out of us? There's no genetic reason for curiosity. In fact, if you look at how evolution works, we shouldn't be curious. We should stay in the cave, not go out. What's that roaring sound? And then suddenly get our head bitten off by some wild cat. So where does it come from, and why is it here? There's definitely some dopamine involved in that solving of puzzles and problems and questions. I've used a lot of photos of my children because they just do an X for the model release form, and it's easy to use them in my slides. But the average 4-year-old asks 100 questions every day. And I'm a bit of an addict when it comes to documenting the moment, and this comes from years of traveling and kind of wanting to remember this incredible moment, this incredible moment, this incredible moment, and taking a camera on my journey. Now it's audio, it's video, it's photos, it's geographic data, anything that my device in my pocket will enable me to capture, to kind of archive that moment, which is then automatically saved to a number of places. So the audio I'm about to play is just captured last week whilst the sun was out. Where are we? Where are we?
I don't know.
We're in a graveyard. And there's a plane doing acrobatics above us. Loop-the-loop. What are we doing in a graveyard?
Eating.
Like having a picnic, aren't we? We've just been to the doctor's. I had to take the little girl to the doctor's.
Daddy,
Yeah?
why do you have that?
Why am I recording?
Yes.
To document the moment, so that we can listen back when you're an old lady. And you...
Ah!
Yeah, when you used to sound like a little girl.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know why she's thanking me. Chokes me up just listening to her go, thank you, that's really thoughtful. I might start doing that. I hope not yet. It takes up a lot of time. So this anomaly, this curiosity, and it is a miracle that curiosity survives formal education, said Albert Einstein, and I don't think things have changed that much since. And yet, you can see I'm quite a questioning person. I'm constantly asking questions, mostly of myself. I think it's important to have those questions. As was mentioned, who am I? What am I doing? Because you can assess and take stock right here, right now, and then just adjust and shift the moment. A little bit left, a little bit right, and yeah, I'm on the right track. And that was kind of drilled into me as a kid who had a very miserable father who was a great childhood. He was a teacher. He hated the education system. So at the end of the day, I'd get, did you ask any good questions today? Not, how was your day? Because he knew it's school, it's going to be shit. But did you ask any good questions today? Oh, I asked a great one that the teacher couldn't answer. Brilliant, let's try and solve it now. And that, for me, meant that it become ingrained. Always ask questions, always ask questions. It never dawned on me that asking questions might make me look stupid. I thought it just made me look curious. And in a world where everything online seems to be the curated moment of check out my lunch and check out this and check out that and check out the other and look how wonderful my life is, it's very rare we will actually put our hand up and dip into that external network. Asking questions was a matter of survival for me. When I went to university, without A-levels, I managed to blag my way into Coventry University to do some kind of weird theoretical physics course, which I thought I could do because I got a C in physics. That was my highest grade. And And then I realized I didn't want to do the engineering that my parents told me to do. Another very important thing you've been told today, just let the kids do whatever they want. Because I felt like I'd wasted 6 months of my life at university. I even paid my grant back because I thought, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I gave them the money back, said, you can look after that for me? I'll be back. And I didn't. I just went traveling. And like 1 month, unfortunately, I was reading a book called The Dice Man by Luke Reinhardt. Has anybody read it? Oh, it messes with your life and your mind. And suddenly, you can do anything you want, and there's no responsibility comes back on you. One of the first things that came up was go to a war-torn country and send a postcard. And that option came up. You have to put an option, give an option to the dice of something you really don't want to do. I saw it as a way of breaking routine and not being stuck in the rut. I saw everybody that I'd gone to school with getting in a rut and then getting made redundant. So traveling stretched on years and years and years, and I was a didgeridoo instructor in Australia. I was an expedition leader in Africa, because every time someone said, can you do this? I'd go, yep. And then I'd find someone who's doing it and go, how'd you do this? And that yes, yes, yes. Obviously, if someone says, can you be a brain surgeon, then maybe think about it a bit longer than just yes and get in there and get your hands dirty. So for me, just travel, absorb, say yes to everything, experience as much as possible. I know that's adjusted my perspectives. I had to get a job, though. I had to get a job and settle down. And one thing that appealed to me was being a photographer, so I did just walk into a newspaper and say, I'm a photographer, because I had a camera with some holiday snaps. And luckily, their photographer had just broken both her arms in a car accident, and they were short a photographer. I was like, have you got a camera? I said, not digital. They said, could you go to the hospital and pick it up? Okay, and that's how it started. And then, of course, what happened to the newspaper industry, I could see that coming. And no matter how much I tried to evolve as a photographer, you couldn't beat the fact that everybody suddenly had a camera and everybody was taking their own pictures. And when I went to the news desk, look, I've got photos and audio. They're like, what are we going to do with that? So I decided to go freelance, 2003. And that freelancing, again, from my traveling experience, I thought, I need to be able to do everything based around what the desired outcome is. What is the desired outcome right now of what you are doing? Because it might not be, I love to code, I'm coding. The desired outcome is something much bigger than that. And for me, the desired outcome was to maybe further understanding through narrative. And that could be in photos, that can be in audio, that could be in any way that you can fit a story in. So right now, I split myself and I create this kind of tripod business model, because disruption is never far away. So I'm talking, I'm teaching, and I'm documenting. And the teaching, as has been said many times, is the one way I really get to know something new. Can you do a workshop on video production with a mobile phone? Yeah. And then learn everything I possibly can so that when I'm delivering it, it makes some kind of sense. The plugging into that network, as has been mentioned. One thing kind of backs up the other. When it comes to training, I've realized it's so important to create a space. Training is literally just an event that happens. Learning involves what we do on a daily basis. And so I say to these people, at the end of the workshops, these are the tasks you've got to do. You have to create a space where it's okay to screw up, where play plays a huge part into how you're going to learn all of this. My learning journey is a byproduct of what I do, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly. And I sat down for this talk and thought, okay, what do I do on a daily basis? Well, I try to fit this into everything, this weird cycle of how to guarantee creativity, this feeding my brain, read as much about a particular subject. Then there's the incubation, where you just let it go. You step away from it. You walk away from it. Then there's the illumination comes when that happens. This is why a lot of meetings don't really work in these confined environments, because nobody wants to be in that windowless room, and they'll just agree to anything to get out of that space, where really you should just, okay, we know what we need to do. Let's all go and do something else completely disconnected, because then the eureka moment happens. Then you've got to kind of craft and package the concept and the idea and share it with your peers or people in your network, because it might be a bit weird, and in many cases it is. So on a daily basis, there's a suite of apps I use for different reasons. The people that I mentor or mentor me, I do in asynchronous encrypted audio, just because I'd like to see more encryption on the web, through an app called Threema. It's Swiss-owned. It's not the Russian Telegram, which doesn't seem to have any real form of encryption. And Proud is my kind of to-do list. I really like Proud, because as a freelancer working on my own in my shed in the bottom of the garden, occasionally it will just pop up and go, good job today, you've done loads of stuff. I'm like, oh, thanks very much, inanimate object, appreciate that. And it's got a really interesting, very quick, okay, I need to read a book. It's going to take an hour, or read a book for an hour, and I'll repeat that every day. And it's there. And it's a reminder that is nudging me in a very pleasant way. It's the only thing the Apple Watch is good for. I have another one for telling the time. So, plug in. You always have a backup. I don't know why you only got one laptop for that. So for me, this social learning that occurs through the kind of relationships that happen on Twitter. Twitter is exactly what the video was talking about before. That's where I follow the smarter, quicker, faster, better, leaner people who really know what they're doing. Instead of going to the Science Journal and subscribing to that, I want to go to the scientists and follow in real time the journey before the paper even exists. And that happens daily on the social web. That's my excuse for spending hours on Twitter. Anything I can't read there and then, I'll click and save, and it'll go to Instapaper or another bookmarking type site. That means that every device I have has a copy of that thing I didn't have time to read there. So I pick up the Kindle at night, and all of my Instapaper stuff is there without the adverts, just the text and the photos. And then daily, and I've done this every single day this year, I will go for a run. Short runs, unlike some of the people here that will just get up before breakfast and do 10K. The minimum for me is 2K, a maximum is 17. That is amazing. No headphones. Go out there, away from any screens, no notifications, and that's where your subconscious mind that's normally collating and fixing everything at night comes to you and says, this is what you need to do. And it's miraculous, it really is. And I'm an avid diarist. I've done almost 1 million words into the app Day One. Day One being quite an amazing way across multiple devices. I don't know who's reading my diary right now and selling advertisements off the back of it. I'm a bit worried about that bit, but I try to store everything on my own server. Making the space every week so I can play and experiment and be really silly with the technology. When you're being really silly with technology, mistakes are just a part of the gag. And it's okay to make those mistakes, providing nobody gets hurt. We encourage babies to learn through play. Why can't grown-ups continue to do that? And on a weekly basis, I'll empty my bag. Sometimes I blog about what's in my bag, but I'll have a look at everything. Does this have a use? Is there anything better? Does this have a use? Is there anything better? And then I'll hone my daily documenting kit, swap it for something else, or just bin it. And the biggest realization I've had this year is starting a very, very old methodology, which I find this is a really important part of my learning journey. It's doing a newsletter. I must be the last person in the world to do a newsletter. And yet here is this really kind of tight personal network I've been able to build with a few hundred people that have subscribed and talk to me as much as I'm talking to them, because I'll ask questions in it. How do you feel about this? And it becomes this quite controlled, I guess, diary entry with some of my key learnings from the week, but I've had so many valuable instances and serendipitous chances come through doing this. I highly recommend you give it a go. My blog is almost unused at the moment because of this, and I'm amazed at the mechanism. Every month, or sometimes bi-monthly, I'll put a big block in my diary that says adventure, and I will go and have some kind of adventure. It might be bivvying under the stars. There's an island, private island near where I live, and I've got a little canoe, and I'm going to kayak out with the little boy, illegally, I know, I hope they're not watching. I haven't said where it is, and set up a little camp, but I'm going to go there in advance and bury some treasure on this island, because he's only 7 and he still believes in pirates, not the Somalian ones that will kill you. So do this. Get out of your workflow. Get out of your comfort zone. It's quite easy to fit adventure into your life if it's in your diary and it looks like a job. I put it under the work tab. So, to summarize, the world is moving too fast just for you to stand there with a few answers. I do think the questions are the most important things. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? How can I do it better? Am I happy? How many times do we ask, am I happy right now? If you're not, if you're only here once, unless you believe in other things, I think it's worth addressing that and changing that. We are fleshy learning machines. You have learning machine on your slides there, oiled with curiosity. So be passionate, curious, and as open as you feel you can with the network I hope you've painstakingly curated. Discover and capture expertise and knowledge. And when I say capture, this is where the diary comes in. Reflection was talked about earlier on. That, for me, is my key end of the day, every day. What did I learn today? How did I feel about today? And it sounds like I'm giving myself therapy. I guess I am. I haven't even thought of the word until I came here. Share your learnings, and that's where the newsletter comes in, or your blog, or wherever you're blogging exactly this. And the value you said explained to me why I'm doing it. I hadn't really thought about that until you said that. That's a great takeaway. That reflect daily and read more off the back of you. I'm going to take those book lists off you. 1 hour a day is a book a week. 52 books a year. How impressive is your bookcase going to look? Or your Kindle that you leave lying around with all your red folder, I hope. Or your Goodreads account. I use a little thing on Goodreads where I challenge myself to read 30 books a year, and I try to crack that, and it's great. It's good at nagging you. You haven't read much this week? And the long form is key. So with that, I will say, please let me come on your learning journey as well. Let's connect and share and learn together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you. Awesome stuff, and a lot of things dovetailing very nicely, some themes that we're hearing across the board here. Just before I try and sort of connect some of those in summary, we've not got long, unfortunately. For me, there were 2 things going on that you were talking about. One was this being in the moment and letting serendipitous things happen, and the other one was documenting and creating that narrative for yourself to look back on. Is that right? And are those 2 things equally important, or do you...
Serendipity is not something I think you can control, but you can teach yourself to put yourself in situations where fortuitous chance encounters happen. And I think, for me, I learned something from Tim Smith, who runs the Eden Project. I said to him, come on, give me one thing I can take away right now from this 2-minute conversation we're going to have that's going to change my life. He says, the thing that changed my life more than anything else is I get asked to do 1 million talks and 1 million meetings. I always accept the third ask, the request. Every third person asks me, I always say yes. I say, why? He says, because that puts you outside of your comfort zone. You never know. It's probably not for money. And you will meet people outside of your normal sphere of interest. And that, for me, was one of the biggest tips on how to find those serendipitous, amazing moments when you think, I knew I had to come here for a reason. Yeah, I know it sounds, my parents are hippies. That's why serendipity is such an important word to me.
Awesome, thank you. And in terms of the narrative component, how much is the self-documenting, the sort of the quantified self approach, something that's happening now because the technology lets us, or something that really in our brains is a key to something and should have been there from the beginning of time?
I started writing a diary when I was 13, but then took many girl-related years off writing a diary until I started traveling again. We've always since scrawling stories, instruction manuals for hunting on cave walls, we've always had this yearning to do that and share that knowledge. And I think that although maybe 80% of what I document is kept offline, it's such a huge, important part of my learning process to be able to dip back into that. And occasionally I have certain apps that will throw up. 3 years ago today, this happened, and I'll realize, wow, I really did learn from that, because that kind of thing hasn't happened again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that Alex identified in the previous session as well. It's coming up a lot today. Awesome. We are sadly already well over time, but I want to sort of throw it out to you guys to link this session up for me. What are the major themes, or the major theme that stuck out for you that you're taking away from this? Anybody want to jump in and say, I really like the way this through line has stood out for me? Yes, please.
I'm a final speaker as well, but this has really brought out to me just how not to limit your career path or yourself by what you might perceive your job to be. This is my job. This is how I gain my own success. But how we, through our interests, leak out into other areas and think, yeah, I'm okay being here. I'm outside of my domain, but I'm confident with that, and we don't receive back. Once we've gone out, that's it. You're out, and you've expanded that sphere of where you feel comfortable.
Can I respond to this?
Yes, please.
So, yeah, I do a bit of consulting as well, and I was in New Zealand talking to Hyundai, and it took them a day to decide what industry they are in, like what was the desired outcome and what industry they are in, because they just assume we sell cars. But it wasn't. It was, sounds wanky when I say this, mobility management. So they don't have to sell cars. They can have a car on the corner of every street that you just unlock and use whenever you want, which is potentially going to be Apple's model and all the rest of it. The moment you step out of that, I'm a coder, I code, anything is possible, because how many different facets of that job are there? I think you put it very eloquently.
Thank you. It was a lovely summary. I love the bit about if you step out of your comfort zone, then your comfort zone stops there in that new place now. You never have to go back into it, which fits strongly with what Charlotte and Jeremy were saying. Thank you very much. I'm going to bring this session to a close now, but would you please put your hands together one more time for our panel today? Thank you. Thanks very much, guys.